All right, guys, thanks for joining me on this one. We're going to talk about the architecture and a technical overview of S2 Search. So just to be clear, S2 Search is a platform. It's software as a service, but it is also a platform. So you do not have to worry about what's behind the scenes. It's all managed by myself. You don't have to worry about it at all. But what this is useful for is if you're interested in understanding what's going off under the hood, or if you want to know how it all works before maybe becoming a customer, then this is you can be interested in this. So let's have a look at the overall architecture. So this is the S2 Search platform, and these are all the resources that make up an S2 Search cluster, essentially. So what you're looking at here, I'm going to go through these terminologies shortly, but this big square here, this is I'm basically referring to this as a search cluster, and then this small one here is global infrastructure that supports everything for every cluster available. So we have an AKS, just to run through this quickly. So an AKS container registry, that's just simply for storing Docker images that can support updates in the software itself. And then we have an identity provider, Azure B2C. So if you've watched the admin portal demo and you see me log in, you get that nice picture of Derbyshire, the Derbyshire Dales. That's what's powering that and that login provider. So I don't see any credentials or get involved with any of that whatsoever. It's all managed by Microsoft. So it just means the security is top notch. So here is the bit that you're probably most interested in. And what we're going to do is we're going to run through this in a bit more detail. But before we do, let's just run through some terminology. So when I say search cluster, if we go back to this, I'm referring to all the resources that when provisioned will essentially operate a S2 search cluster. So all these together in this blue square is what I refer to as search cluster. So it's a group of resources in the cloud that when provisioned together will provide everything needed for S2 search to operate. Now when I say search instance, that's a little bit different. So a search instance, so for example, if you've been to demo.s2search.co.uk, that is a search instance. Different packages provide more instances. So let's say, for example, let's say you're a big dealership and you have, say, multiple, say you're a big dealership, multiple divisions, but then you have different franchises. Maybe you have a website per franchise, and maybe you'd like to use S2 Search maybe to cater for maybe 2 or 3 of your franchises. So you could have one instance that could support maybe franchise 1 with its own domain, franchise 2 on a separate one, and franchise 3 but on a separate one as well. And each one of those instances can be managed independently in regards to the way they look, their data sources, and their individual URLs. So if you had that requirement, then standard will be the best one for you because you get 3 instances. So on the basic package, you get 1 search instance, standard 3, and on premium you can have up to 15. So that's basically what I mean by the terminology. So let's have a look at the infrastructure in a little bit more detail, and I'll explain what each of those resources are and what they do. So let's move on to this. Okay, so the light bulb in the top corner there, that is Application Insights. And what that does is that allows me to monitor any issues, any exceptions, any errors that might be generated within the cluster. So there's one instance of Application Insights per cluster. So for example, if I ever get to a point where I've got multiple of these, multiple customers, each customer will have an individual app insight. So the errors are isolated to that cluster and they're all logged inside there. So that's really useful for keeping an eye on the performance and make sure everything's healthy. Next to it is storage. So we've got blob storage for kind of physical assets, things like images and data that relate to other parts of the system. And then we've got the message queue as well. So I use that for transmitting messages and data around the system. Next to that, we've got a couple of databases, SQL database. So this one here is for essentially search instance configurations. This manages the way the system looks and the configuration there and the domain setups and all that kind of stuff. And then this one here is reporting. So this kind of ties into the reporting data that when the user is doing searches, it logs that data for your reporting insights. Let's move on to the next one then. So this one here is kind of the heart of the system. This is the AKS instance, which is Azure Kubernetes Service. And this is what powers all the APIs, all the UIs. It's got a cache built into it as well. And it also manages the SFTP data that comes in as well. So essentially this is the heart of the system. And the great thing about Kubernetes is it's very simple and very easy to scale out, and we can also configure it to auto scale. So even if you've got only one cluster, you should never get into a situation where you can't scale out. So that gives us a lot of options for kind of enterprise scaling. The other advantage it provides as well is when we deploy new features, they're deployed with zero downtime. So let's say we do a new feature for S2 Search and you're a customer. When we deploy that feature to our clusters, you get that instantly and you won't have any degradation. It's not like an out of hours deployment. We can deploy at any point. And it's also fault tolerant. So if it ever detects an issue with anything, it can just kill it automatically and then regenerate one. And again, it does that in a way where it's with zero downtime. There's loads of other stuff it does, so it's really powerful and it really complements this system. So yeah, that's the AKS system there. And then we're moving on to this one here. So this is the serverless compute, the Azure functions. So I'm using these for two different specific functions within the platform. So the first one here is a vehicle image, the vehicle feed processor. So when you send your data via CSV, it'll come through via the SFTP service, and then this function here will take that data and then send it out to the search index and update your data in real time with no degradation of service. And this one down here is a separate function which is to manage all the insights. This is the data that's being captured when your customers are interacting with your search instances. This one down here is the S2 search engine. So this is the engine I've built to be able to provide all the services, the search services. And this is kind of split into multiple instances. So as I said before, if this was a standard instance platform, you get 3 available on this, as in the packages. So if it's a standard package of 3, premium 15, basic 1, then with the enterprise you can have up to 50 with that one as well. So with this one, you basically get 2 sources. You've got the facets, which are the filters. So that's one API source, and the second API source is the actual vehicle data. So that's essentially the search engine. And then we move over to this one. This is the gateways, so the platform gateways. So the third, we've got 2 gateways. So one we have up here, which accepts data via external FTP traffic. So you'll invoke this when you send your data. So essentially, when you sign up for this, I'll be giving you this endpoint here, so ftp.s2search.co.uk. You're provided some credentials, and then if you can integrate that with your existing FTP system, or for example, to begin with, you can test it with some sort of client, such as FileZilla. You can just copy your file there, and that will just automatically update your data into via this function and then via this search engine. The next one is the gateway for the cluster. So this is the load balancer where user traffic, so 99.9% of all traffic will be user traffic, so this is your customers. And then we also expose, if they're of use to you, the APIs as well. So if you have developers or an IT department that want to use the APIs that S2 Search provides, you can integrate with those as well. So we'll provide you secure access to those endpoints. So potentially you can get external API traffic as well going to that load balancer. Okay, so what are the enterprise options then with S2 Search? So as I mentioned, we've got basic, standard and premium, but we do also have enterprise as an option, and that's the kind of call us option really, because we can offer anything. It's really depending on what you need. So a typical example maybe of an enterprise solution would be maybe 2 premium clusters. So we could say one maybe here, for example, and then maybe the other one there, and then your traffic would be load balanced between, and then that would provide high availability, load balancing, and a multi-region. But obviously we can extend that further, and if you wanted, you could have any number of different regions, and then you could provide true high availability for your customers. It all depends on what you want. If you were to call me and say I'm interested in this, but I want an enterprise option, I want at least 2 regions load balanced, or I want prices for multi-regions, and we can just run through that together. But for enterprise, really, we're offering multi-region, load balancing, geo-replication, high availability, all that kind of stuff. Cool, so that pretty much covers it. If you want a copy of this presentation, more than happy to provide it. If you email me, there's my email address, jonathangilmartin@square2digital.com. You can always contact me on LinkedIn as well. I'm active on there. And then you obviously can just go to the website. If you want a copy of this, as I say, more than happy to provide it. Thank you very much. And if you do have any questions, just contact me and we can go from there. Cool. Cheers, guys. Thank you.